Team, thank you everyone for those of you that are joining live today. I've got a very special guest, Julia Riese, with me. Look, most dentists think growth problems are marketing problems. And if leads come in and the team struggles in your dental practice to confidently operate and work together and follow workflows, then conversions are going to collapse. And today, the topic we're going to talk about is this hidden lever. People, culture, leadership. And we're going to explore this deeply with Julia, who is a seasoned veteran at managing and scaling dental practices. I'm going to ask Julia to share a little bit of her background in a sec. But I suppose one of the things Julia shared with me recently was retention in dental practice is no longer nice to have. I know that the market's tight with finding good people. So that makes it even more important that the people we do have, we need to focus on leadership development and helping, I suppose, our staff to get better results day in and day out more consistently. And she said to me a number that just blew my mind. So $250,000 is the potential cost of losing a provider in your practice. $250,000. That's like, for a clinic doing $1 million a year, that's like 25% of your revenue just gone. So what I want for those of you that are joining live today, and I know we have a lot of clients that are watching this session as a replay, I want to leave you with three things today. Number one, I want to leave you with a simple framework for diagnosing your team performance. Like when Julia and I were planning for this session and she talked me through a framework for diagnosing team performance, I was like, my clients are just going to love this. So please, I hope you've brought pen and paper because you're going to really enjoy the system that Julia is going to show you, a simple framework for diagnosing team performance. That's number one. Number two, the second thing I want you to leave today's session with is a way that you can make a commitment to addressing toxic performers in your team without drama. We all have a tendency as leaders to just ignore it and hope it's going to go away. Hopefully today, you can walk away with the courage and the tools to address toxic performers without drama. The third thing is a practical bench building exercise that we're going to do later in the session so that you have a plan on how you can recruit and ramp up and retain A players. Recently, I read Julia's new book. It's called Beyond Dentistry. We're going to share the link there because I think it's an amazing read. It covers 4 pillars to building and scaling and running successful dental practices. It's truly a handbook. It's fantastic. And I suppose I've mentioned before Julia's background as operations director of a 20 plus dental practice group. I'm really lucky to have Julia with us today. And I think for those of you that are attending this call live, you are going to realize the value of what this lady brings to the table. Julia, without further ado, I'd love for you to share a little bit of context about yourself.
Of course. Thank you so much, Brendan. So I have started in dentistry over 10 years ago now. It's been a long time, and initially started, I have a background in marketing and business. That's where I did my bachelor's and master's in. So I came across Frank and the Coast Dental Care Group back then when it was still very small and still very unknown. And yeah, basically worked through marketing, then operations, had a fair bit of exposure to the people and culture side of things too, because it's all interlinked. And it has been a really, really good learning experience, but also so many insights that I was able to gain over the years with our owner structure and working with so many different co-owners and dentists from all different ages and pathways. So very excited to share some of the insights today with you guys.
I'm so glad that we've got you and we've got you for an hour, which is amazing. So you said something to me, Julia, recently. You said the ripple effect. And I was like, what do you mean by the ripple effect? And then you went on to kind of explain it to me. And I was like, aha. Do you mind, for those of us that are live on the call today who've never heard of the ripple effect before, help me understand two things. What is it and why does it matter so much to dentistry?
Yes, I think every one of you will know if you work in a dental practice that it is especially hard at these times to find good team members. And once you have these great team members to then keep them engaged and keep them happy at work. And when I talk to Brendan about like what comes up, what are things that practices struggle with, is definitely recruiting, but then also maintaining a great team, because everything really, the practice, that's the foundation of your practice, having a great team, because they are delivering the experience for the patient. So if you think about your team as a whole and you just have one team member that is quite unhappy and negative and brings that negativity into the team, they will always need someone else to be negative with. So they usually don't stay quiet about their negative attitude, and it will spread. It will spread through the team like a ripple, and it might start with a small wave of them coming in a bit later, being not as motivated as usual. And then obviously other team members will start picking up on it. And all of a sudden you develop a standard where everyone is a bit late and everyone is a bit negative. And the conversations in the lunchroom turn from, oh, well, like, what do we want to do next? Like, how can we improve our practice, to like, oh, don't really want to be here. It's like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. It's only like 3 more hours to clock off. So yes, so that can affect then the whole practice. And there have been so many studies, like Harvard has just released another study like 2 years ago too, around how just one negative team member, they call it one bad apple, can spoil the whole lot.
Wow. That's the sort of stuff that people would say to me as a child growing up, was like, when it was like behaving well or going to school and finding the right people to be friends with at school, it was like, one bad apple in the bunch can ruin the whole lot. But this is a story of business, right? And we can't forget that, that little thing that happens, and you see it as leaders, like I'm sure we all do. Someone's late to work today, then they're late to work tomorrow, then they're late to the work. Then what you're describing is the ripple effect, where it then suddenly starts to become okay to be late. Is that correct?
Yes, you're setting like what you tolerate sets the new standard. So, and
Wow.
that the rest of the team will adjust to that. So even if just one member starts with that, others will
Wow.
follow.
Guys, we've got a chat channel on Zoom, and the more you contribute and engage in the chat channel, the more feedback that's going to give me and Julia about the things we need to kind of get into and the next questions that I'm going to ask Julia. So I really appreciate already we're seeing comments in the chat, Julia. Like I think I guessed this, like someone's just written there, Kaylee, we're struggling really bad with this exact problem at the moment. So I'm feeling like we're talking about stuff that's really connecting with people's hearts right now on this call. You know, what are some of those early warning signs? Like, yes, okay, we understand what the ripple effect is, and it matters a lot because all of a sudden it takes us away from wanting to improve the business, like you said, to now we're firefighting, just trying to hold on to culture. What are some of those early warning signs? Like, how can I spot it if I'm a business leader or a business owner or a practice manager? How do I spot that negativity is starting to leak into the team?
Yeah, I think if you watch out for the little things, the little one percenters that are like very easy to do, but also very easy not to do. And if the team starts leaning towards not to do these little easy things that should be like being on time, like greeting patients with a smile, like picking up the phone with a smile, like all these little things, if they don't happen anymore, then having the conversation early with a team member, because sometimes I guess we don't know what's at the bottom of this problem. Like, where does that behavior come from? And by having a conversation very early on and digging deeper and finding out like why is that so? Um,
Mm.
that will help to, yeah, navigate the whole situation.
I hear you. I hear you. And we've got to be very humble in this regard as leaders that, the behavior we're observing on the surface might not be the root cause of why that's happening in the first place. It might be something else that's happened, or someone's feeling disenfranchised somewhere else. And it's just showing up as poor behavior over here, using, lateness as an example. But it's all well and good to handle a people problem with staff that are underperforming. What if, though, you know, it almost feels like a dangerous situation to be in. What if your best performer is the one that's showing up late? What if it's your best performer that seemingly just ignores those little one percenters because it's easy not to do? What do we do then?
Yes, and I guess the question again is, why are they ignoring those little things? Like,
Mm,
where are they coming from? Are they not engaged anymore because they are thinking, oh, well, I'm the key person here. I'm doing so much work. and I'm getting disengaged now because I don't get recognition for what I do, or I feel like I'm carrying the team, but no one else is chipping in. And what's the reason for them dropping the ball in that sense and having picking it up very early and approaching the conversation from a point of curiosity instead of blame because
That's so interesting, right? Because it's hard to be a business owner and have the ability to stay, how do I put this, curious, to stay curious in the conversation because we're so used to just operating with that, get it done. Here's a problem, solve the problem, firefighting almost. Like, have you got any tips for, I suppose, people on this call around how they can stay more curious and engaged in the conversation and how it may come off not as blame?
yes, I think overall we see the behavior, right? But we can only make assumptions about the intentions that are lying underneath the behavior. And we all have experiences in our life stories. So our conclusion to what the person's intentions are always biased. So if we think about,
Yes, I agree.
okay, let's go in here very open-minded, and as I've observed this behavior, and I will just bring up the behavior, not criticize the person as such, not like, oh, you're really negative, but having the conversation, leading the conversation with, look, I noticed that when you pick up this phone lately, you're not smiling anymore like you used to. Is there something going on that you want to share? And
Mm,
actually leading with questions rather than with statements and focusing on the behavior rather than the person.
rather than the person. And it's so easy to fall into the trap because we're not trained, like as business leaders, we're not really trained in communication. So we just say what comes out or what we're thinking. But you have to take the time to think, how am I going to get this message across if I'm wanting to be curious? Like if someone's late, don't say you're late all the time. It's like, I've noticed you've been late. Is there a reason for being late? Like, is that a better way to go about it than trying to allay blame?
Yes, and even like for you, the problem is now, okay, they're being late. But the problem that is underneath, like a layer underneath and a layer underneath, we might not even see that yet. They might
Wow.
be late because they don't enjoy what they're doing anymore. They might not enjoy what they're doing anymore because they haven't have a hard time at home, or that's something that happened at work that they
Yeah.
still on their mind.
Yeah.
We don't know the layers, and unless we dig deep and be open and really try to figure out what's the layer underneath and getting all the way to the bottom of the problem, then we can, help the team member to actually solve it.
That's incredible because you're making me think of like, when we're converting patients, we're talking to patients and presenting treatment plans, and you get that initial objection. It's usually never just that initial objection. It's, we learn how to go to the next level, the next level, the next level, and uncover really what's the reason that the patient's not moving ahead with the treatment plan. I suppose it's applying that same thought process, that same curiosity with the people who work with us, right?
Exactly.
Wow, interesting. That is gold. I put a note in the chat about it's the behavior versus the intention behind the behavior. And hopefully for those of you who want to confront behavioral issues, you can start to think what might be causing this, and that will get you into a curious state. Now, let's change gears a little bit, Julia. I think it's time to show off some of your drawing skills because you're epic at that. The skill will matrix. Guys, into the chat, if anyone has heard of the skill will matrix before, I want you to just type yes. Or if you've never heard of the skill will matrix before when it comes to managing people, I want you to type in no. And we're going to do a quick poll between yeses and nos. We've got quite a few people on the live call here. So I just want you to write in if you've heard of the skill will matrix, yes. If you haven't, no. Julia, can you draw me the skill will matrix so that everyone can see it? And I'd love you to explain to me what we get out of drawing out this skill will matrix. And I'm just looking at the no's come through on the live chat. Like there are a lot of no's here. There actually are no yeses yet. So guys, either you're playing humble or there is literally no one here who has come across the skill will matrix before. So if that's the case, this what you're about to draw is very exciting.
So,
I'm just going to do a quick sense check. Erin, can you see the screen in front of you? Just
Can see the screen.
you can. Great. Go.
awesome. So very simple matrix, and we have four quadrants in that matrix. On one axis, you have will, and then you have skill. So basically, if you ever wanted to have a rough overview of your team, you will always very easily spot the A players, right? Because they are usually the team players that have high skill and high will. So they come to work, they are willing to do their best. They also have probably been in your practice for a long time. They might have gone through the ranks, started as a DA, then went to a receptionist. Now they are your practice manager, and they really like doing their best every time they come in. So those, yes. So someone said yes. So I've seen this now that I see what it is.
Awesome.
Yes, awesome. So they are your A players, and they are, as a business owner, very easy to manage. Like you want to keep them engaged, but they are already positive and happy to show up. Then you usually also have the players that are relatively low skill and low will. So those are usually the people that don't stay with your team for too long because you are not very attached to them, as they don't really want to work, but they
And they're
also
not adding huge amounts of value either. So it's an easy kind of thought process for a business owner. It's like, well, I'm not really losing much here, and they're not really that interested.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then you probably have your newcomers. They come in, they are super high will and they want to learn, but they are relatively low skill. So they might be someone that joins you from a different industry, like someone that has come from retail, but they want to do dentistry now, want to be dental receptionists. So they are new to all the dental programs and all the dental terminology, but they are super will to learn. And yeah, these team members, they will require coaching. So they will require training and progressions to then hopefully move up here.
That's the goal, isn't it? To get everyone into the high skill, high will.
Yes,
When
ideally.
we, yeah, when we talk about A players, right? We throw that conversation around very loosely these days. And when we say we want to build A player teams, what you're really saying on this matrix is we want to see people in that high skill, high will category. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
And then this one is probably the person that we've talked about previously, the ones that have high skill. They probably know everything, they know your practice inside and out, but they somehow are disengaged. They're relatively low-willed, they don't really want to be there. And these are probably the ones, as a business owner, that a lot of people would struggle with to manage the most because they are so highly skilled and you really clinically like need them in the practice. But then, yeah, they are that negative person that might, yeah, spread the negativity around in the team.
Yeah. That feels like handcuffs.
Yes. So, and our goal again would be to move these people over here.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
Brendan, who do you think would be easier to move, an N or P back to the A?
I intuitively think someone with high will would be more on board. If I think about like who's on board, it would probably be the newbie who's got high will. Would you agree?
And when you hire someone for your team, who do you usually in the interview process select?
Oh, we only go for A players here, Julia. But honestly, no, I wish we could. But in reality, I would pick someone with high will over high skill. If I had to make that call, I would always pick someone with high will.
Yes. And I guess the tricky thing is in an interview that lasts 30 minutes to an hour, it's incredibly hard to figure out how willing they are, right? But
Absolutely.
skill is very easy to assess. Like you might already know that by just looking at their resume.
Wow, you put me on the spot there. I was kind of hoping I wasn't going to be wrong. I let down everyone on this call, but yeah, this is you're hitting at the sore points here for business leaders, right? Like 30 minutes to make a call. And let's get to the reality of some of these business leader recruitment strategies. Sometimes you only get one person who applies for a role who is keen and ready to start, and then you're kind of making a decision based on do I hire this person or do I not? And then have ongoing vacancies. So sometimes we get thrown into just hiring people, but something changes when you know who you're about to hire, don't you? Like when you know I need someone who's got high will and you can articulate why you need them, you tend to, I don't know, for me anyway, I make an easier yes or a no call with that. Has that been your experience as well?
Yes, and I guess the super tricky thing is, in like in our dental practices, at least, a lot of our teams are time poor.
Yeah.
So when it comes to hiring someone that has zero dental experience and is super willing to learn but has no experience in dental whatsoever, it gets quite tricky.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have to spend a lot of
But
time on training them. So if you don't have the processes in place to do that and to repeat that in an like easy way so that everyone can chip in and help out with the training, it
yes.
would get really, really hard to just hire ends and try to move them to the A's.
Because it's not a rite of passage, is it? Like I was having this conversation with a practice manager just a couple of weeks ago. Um, I'm pausing here because I want to kind of share this in the best way possible with the best intent. But the issue they had was they've got people probably sitting in the P, which, you've got your A players who've just still got very high skill, but they've got to a low will. So, those one percenters are just not getting done. But then it's a very tough decision to move those people on or to do any performance management because there's fear around the end because there's no processes, there's no clear role description, there's no clarity on like, well, I'm just going to go to market and get someone who's similar. Like, how important in your experience is it, Julia, to have the right hiring assets when it comes to clear role description, understanding of the behavior type that you need to hire for that role?
Yeah. As I said, the team is the foundation of your practice, and without having the processes, your foundation can't be as strong as it could be.
Uh-huh.
So, ideally, what you want to have is a recruitment process, a detailed onboarding process, and an induction and training process that leads up to the first 6 months. And depending on where people are at, you like if you hire someone that is an A player, and there are some out there,
Yeah.
obviously you might be able to skip some of the actual like dental
Yeah.
related training.
I love what you just said. In our business, every role has a clear role description, KPIs, and we have a 90-day plan, right? And I think we've learned the hard knocks of going, well, we've hired people, there's no framework. And then all of a sudden they might have high will, but then they become problem people because they've just got no clear path to what good looks like in your business. So I would love to know for those of you that are live on the call, who's actually got clear role descriptions and at least, I mean, Julia said 6 months, but let's say, have you got a ramp up plan for training and onboarding new staff? If you do, just put yes into the chat. If you don't have a clear plan for your important roles in terms of a role description and what else did you mention, Julia? You said the role description.
Yeah, so you want to have the recruitment process where you usually have at least templates for your different job ads. So to make sure that people know what's important for you as a business. Then you interview questions that should also be like documented, like your whole recruitment process, like how do you move people along from step to step. And then you'd also usually have a detailed onboarding process.
Onboarding process. And, the onboarding process isn't just here's where the toilets are and this is where the emergency evacuation is. What actually is an onboarding process?
An onboarding process starts with going through the position description of the team member and saying, look, this is what we would expect from you, and going through it, like making the time going through it with them item for item so that you will get a good sense of, okay, they are confident in that area, they might need extra training in that area. And then from then on, you can customize their training plan for the next couple of months.
So if I understand it correctly, the onboarding process is written to take an N to an A. If they follow the onboarding process, do it well, there's a great chance that they'll get to A.
Ideally, yes. And even if you have someone that might be a P that you've hired that is super skilled, but might come in and doesn't, or just, yeah, comes to work because they have to come to work, to see how you can engage them and how you might be able to
Mm.
give them motivation to move
Mm.
into the A area as well.
Yeah, I just see a comment from Di. Di is a phenomenal practice manager. They've got an amazing clinic. And one thing Di's just said here is people getting promoted, like it's a successful practice, A players are doing well, but then they're getting promoted from one role to another, but then there's no managing of that on ramp into the new role. how important is it, Julia, when people get promoted and you're celebrating your A players moving from one spot to another to still stay humble with that ramp up plan?
Yes, I think it gets especially tricky when you're talking about the practice management position, because as the practice manager, the only other person that is above you there is the practice
The
owner.
owner. Yeah.
So for the owner, look, incredibly important to give the new practice manager some guidance on expectations, because otherwise, yeah, you don't know what you're supposed to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And I consider myself lucky, and I don't think all leaders are built this way. But I once worked for a general manager at a mining company, Rio Tinto, and I was in a manager role. I was well out of my depth, and he said to me, "Brendan, you've got to write your own onboarding process and your own ramp up plan. I want you to be a well functioning manager in 90 days." And he could have written it for me, but he made me write it and take it to him and say, "What do you think?" And then he edited it and stuff like that. But I always remember how powerful that was, where he got me to write my own. Have you ever had experience where senior roles in the business have had to create their own ramp up?
Yes, like, look, it does happen, I think, more often than not when I talk to practice managers, and they have been in the industry sometimes for years and years, and they said, look, I've been a dental assistant, I've been a receptionist, now I'm practice manager, and like the tasks that I have to do, they're all fine, but I'm really struggling with the people side. Like, I'm really struggling to get the team engaged and like keep the team going.
Mm.
And when someone doesn't perform, how do I address it? Because I think in the dental practice, you are well trained in all the processes, even dealing with difficult patients, and you get that experience and exposure in the DA and the receptionist role, but you don't get the leadership experience that you may need to run a practice as a practice manager.
Yes, absolutely. And there is so much learning on the job that comes with that. But tell me, skill is one thing. I totally get the skill and the will part, but there's almost like this unspoken of piece for practice owners and practice managers, which is really the mindset. We can look at this stuff that we've been talking about here and say, yeah, but I'm not a people leader, or yeah, but I'm better at the tools, I'm better at dentistry, I'm not like leadership's not for me. I think it's a really good time to talk about culture and mindset, Julia. And, you know, while we were preparing for this call, you introduced me to this concept called the triangle and the circle, or the triangle versus the circle. Opportunity to show off a few more drawing skills here. Can you talk me through triangles and circles and how that applies here?
Sure. So I'm not sure, but this is actually dating back, I think, to the 60s. The Cartman Triangle, also called the drama triangle. And I think it refers to the different states of, I guess, reactive mindset humans can be in, and extremely applicable for leaders and managers, because if we have the triangle, so we've got the rescuer on one end, the persecutor on other end, and then the victim. And a lot of you probably have heard of the victim mentality. So when you have a mindset or like, oh, this is happening to me, like, like the economy, it's really tough at the moment. Patients just don't come because they don't want to spend the money, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like revenue's just down because patients don't come.
And
So
that's the V, the victim.
the victim mentality. Then you have the rescuer mentality. Like, sure, you've come across those team members in the dental practice too, the ones that always want to help. So if they need to feel needed. So if Brendan said to me, "Oh, look, I really need help on this, well, like I can't figure it out," and I'll do it for you. So I take it out of his hands, I do it for him, and I save the day. And then the persecutor, so very like the person that thinks like, well, they're always right, right? So it's they are the person that goes like, well, patients are doing this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. They just don't know, like they should be seeing the dentist way more often, and basically coming from a point of blame.
Blame. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Wow.
And if we, as a manager, find ourselves in these behavior groups, which happens to all of us, like it just does. But if you think of about the analogy of the triangle and think, okay, am I being reactive right now? Like, am I looking for at my team member and think, oh, they again didn't pick up the phone correctly, like they didn't say our normal greeting that they're supposed to say, um, and find yourself there in the P corner. Check in with yourself and see, okay, so how can I help them? Like, what can we do to get them out of there? So instead of being in the triangle, being reactive, trying to move yourself into a circle mindset. So it means you take responsibility for everything that happens, to be proactive and see, okay, instead of um, saving the day and doing the job for someone, actually coaching them on learning how to do the job.
Oh, I get what you're saying here. So the rescuer can be the business owner or the leader stepping in to just do the work to cover the part and go, I'll just do it this time. But
Yeah,
you're actually
I'll just do it myself.
that's not a great mentality to have then.
Especially not if you're like if the business owner is also a clinician and is already like well needs to see patients as well and then jumps in and does everything themselves.
Mm.
As a
Wow.
practice manager, very easy to fall into that trap too because it's like, oh, I need to do it quickly and it will take me longer to show it to someone on how to do it than doing it myself. And if you're time poor, you might end up doing it yourself over and over again. But all
Can
these
relate.
little time frames add up. So if you show someone once and train them on how to do it, you're not even helping like to move them from like maybe a lower will area to a higher will area because they're learning something new and that motivates people. But you're also freeing up your own time.
So if we are behaving like any of those 3 points of the triangle, we're going to be really ineffective to move people from the high skill, low will quadrant into the A player quadrant. And we'll also be very ineffective at moving the newbie into the A player quadrant because those three behavior types are not going to be helpful or productive to the business.
Exactly. And we'll also be very stuck in growing our business because we'll be very reactive. We'll be
Yeah.
taking basically the back seat and saying, this is happening to us. There's not much we can do about it. Whereas if we go into a creator mindset, into a coaching mindset, we are very open and we are taking responsibility and will drive growth.
That is a model I want to see because I don't want to be in any of these three parts of this triangle. And each time you were drawing it and describing it, there were little parts of me that were like, oh my God, I've been there. And I don't feel proud of that as a leader. So show me the circle leadership model because
Yeah.
that's where I think I want to play.
Well, the circle is basically just going around it and saying, okay, so instead of a rescuer, I'll be the coach. Instead of the victim, I'll be a creator. I take full responsibility for my choices and actions. And even though if something happens to me that like I don't necessarily have input on or like an influence on, it's like, okay, so what can I do about this situation? How can I change it? And then, yeah, also thinking about instead of blaming someone else and always having to be right, to be curious and exploring like other points of view because we only base our views and on our past experience, and no one has ever experienced everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's so much more empowering, I feel, for the team around us when they see us as business leaders operating in the accountability cycle. I feel like it's very toxic, whether we say it or not, but just our behavior, if we're always stepping in to rescue and do something, the volume that that would speak to the rest of the team is that I don't trust my staff member and I just get in and do it. So the thing that they all walk around with is Brendan does the work better than we do. And that's incredibly disengaging, isn't it?
Exactly. And you will end up with maybe a lot of high skilled people that will move closer and closer to low will.
Wow. I want to be in the circle, Julia. This has been very, very cool what you're taking us through here. And guys, if you're finding value on this live call, just drop a note in the chat. If you're finding value, just give us a thumbs up, message for Julia. Let us know that you're actually following. But this is so cool that you're actually creating a model here for us, Julia. Thank you. I suppose,
And please share that with your team too, because I've done this with my team here.
yeah.
And now we have team members coming in and they're like complaining about the traffic in the morning. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I have a triangle moment. And we can all laugh about it. And it's like, yeah,
Goodness
all right,
me.
okay. So I was like, what can you do about it? Start earlier tomorrow. I'm like, hey,
Tell
yeah.
me this though. That's exactly what I was going to say next is like, is this like secret leaders business or do we share this with our team? Do we bring them all on the journey?
Bring them all on the journey because this is personal development and this is personal mindset. And look, even this helps you even with your kids. Like when you have to raise young kids and you feel like it's always me, you're always blaming me. And that it starts very early on, right? And when you can teach them then how to take responsibility and see their part of the story and actually teach them like very early on that they understand what the circle means. For kids, it's I think life changing.
Wow. Wow. That is super powerful. And guys, the more we can communicate with our team members, the more skills and tools. I mean, some of your team members, Julia, when you first took them through this, well, they would never have seen this ever. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, no,
This,
they
this.
have just looked at me a bit funnily, but when we actually went into it in a bit more depth, it made sense to everyone because everyone can see themselves in each of those three corners, right? And look, when I was such a doer, so I was like, I want to help my team, I want to help them do it, and they looked under pressure, so I was like, I'll just save the day.
Yeah.
Makes me feel good, and I thought makes them feel good too, and that actually made me hesitate and was like, oh, okay, I didn't actually help them at all. I didn't make them feel good, I made myself feel good. So
Yes. Yes.
it's
From
a mind shift change, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, from one high performer to another, that feels very, very safe to be in that place where you just step in and do the work for someone else because it's easier, it takes less time. And as high performers, I suppose high performers are solving for time efficiency, aren't they? And high quality of work. So would you say that if you're a high performer stepping into a leadership role, this stuff is probably harder work?
Yes, you will because you're probably used to to doing certain things, and I feel like a lot of our practice managers, like definitely with the rescuer mentality, they want to help their team, they want to protect
Mm.
their team, and they've known their team probably for a long time, and it's a natural like for a lot of people a natural thing to then do. But yeah, this hopefully helps everyone, I think, and just hesitate for a second, hold on for a second, and be like, oh, wait, can this be a learning opportunity for someone else? Can I actually coach someone else and enable them to do what I do?
Wow. That's incredible. Go back to that, the basics comment that you said earlier about the thing that's easy to do, but it's easy not to do. As a leader, we have so many micro moments in the day where we're on show and display for our team, aren't we? And sometimes it's easier to step in and do it yourself than to take that pause and have a coaching conversation and let someone else have a go, right?
Yes, it does take more time, but it frees up time in the long run.
In
And
the
if
long run. Yeah.
you're in it for the long game,
Yeah.
try to think about the longevity of your actions.
Yeah, that's if anyone needs that reminder, obviously it's in your book. You talk about ROI quite a bit, but it's about having that long-term game mindset of I'm here to work myself out of doing all these things and creating a bench of A players. Um, that might help those people that are sort of stuck. On the topic of people that are stuck, I know that there are people in my network. I know that I've been one of those people before, Julia, where I've signed up to a belief system as a leader and gone, yeah, I know what I need to do, but I'm not going to do it because insert whatever excuse. Can you tell me from your experience, and you get to see a lot of leaders, you manage a lot of practices. What are the top five like common misbeliefs you hear from practice owners and practice leaders that just this is the reason why, Julia, I'm not going to tackle my performance problems?
Oh, look, the most common one is probably it'll sort itself out, or
Hmm.
like because
Yeah.
we do have at least in our practices a lot of like female workforce too. And if the owner is a male owner, it's like, well, I won't get involved. It's like that's not my area of expertise. I will just stay out of it and let them sort it out.
Wow. So that is very easy to say, and it's easy to kind of just be like, well, it will sort it out. Does it sort it out? Does it ever resolve itself?
No.
No.
I would probably say 90% of the time it doesn't, and the other 10% of the time it's probably an outcome that is not ideal for the business either.
So if I go to your triangle that you've drawn here, which part of this triangle are we sort of sitting and cowering in if we think it's going to sort itself out? Is it the
Oh,
victim?
yeah,
Not
it's probably the victim. It's like, oh, it's not my problem. It's
yeah,
like just happening out there. It's like
yeah,
a very reactive approach, right? And
yeah,
then guess it all comes from a scarcity mindset too. Like the other one is like, I don't, they're really good. They are really like a really good team member, and I really like working with them clinically. So I don't want to lose them. So I think that's another key one why owners won't address certain issues. Just yeah, out of like, what if I don't find anyone else who can replace them?
Oh, I hear that all the time, and the current job market's so tight. I had someone say to me the other day, Brendan, are you out of touch with reality? Like, how can I possibly performance manage my highest performer? And I'm like, well, if you don't, you're going to have a really terrible experience in time to come. But genuinely, people feel that and they believe that, Julia, that like, if they you don't want to lose them, so you shouldn't performance manage them. What would you say to that, having been someone who has successfully driven 20 plus dental practices? I'm sure you face the same economic challenges that everyone else does when it comes to finding talent, right?
Yes, we do. And sometimes you would be surprised if that one person is the person that drives the negativity of the whole team. And if they leave, that everyone else steps up. And we've seen that phenomenon plenty of times that they or like the rest of the team really chips in. And it's like, okay, well, that person is gone, but I'll take over a little bit of their role. I'll take a little bit of their role too. And you actually create a better environment for the team overall.
Wow. So what you mean to say is like a leaner, happier organization.
Yes.
Wow. Take one person out and all the other people start doing more work and taking over more responsibility.
And it does happen. You would still rehire, yeah, but you might not hire a person at that level because you might not be able to find someone that can step right into it. But there might be other people in the practice that are prepared to step up in the meantime.
Yes, that's right. And we're removing the oxygen of being able to have these other people step up while we continue filling that role that's in the way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Any other sort of misbeliefs that come to mind? We've talked about, that it will sort itself out, bit of a victim, like it's not my problem sort of thing. They're too good, so I don't want to confront the situation in case they leave. Anything else that's ever come up?
Yeah, like the understaffing, like like if they go, we'll be understaffed.
Yep.
It's like probably another one is like, oh well, like nothing has really happened. Like it's just rumors or they're just talking. Like
Yeah.
it's not that bad.
That's a good one. I feel almost like a leader might think, well, I heard from someone else that this was discussed in the lunchroom. I heard from someone else that this is what's going on the WhatsApp chat. But I, as a leader, am not part of those conversations. Therefore, I can ignore it. Is that the right mindset, or is there a better mindset that a leader could take?
Well, by ignore like now you're technically aware of it and you're ignoring it, so you're pretty much then thinking, oh, it will sort itself out, right? And
Gotcha.
as we just said, it won't, most likely.
Wow. I like that. I like that. And I think there's so much courage required to overcome that inertia of like going to have a conversation. We weren't born to be great people leaders. So I want to now step through, like what are some of the ways we can approach these kind of things, like the actual tangible, how do we approach something we're not good at as a leader to manage people? Let's talk about, I suppose, what do we do now? We've got someone on our quadrant that we've identified as high skill but low will. And I promised you guys coming out of this live call, you're going to have the courage to do something about it. Tell me, Julia, is there a framework that you would tackle if you had someone in a high skill, low will environment?
Yeah. Well, ideally, all your practice managers have one-on-ones with their team members regularly. And one of those one-on-ones, if you've noticed a recent change in behavior, sit them down and say, hey, I know it's not like scheduled, but let's have a quick chat. And I've noticed a couple of things lately, and I just want to check in with you and see if you're okay.
I'm just going to ask a question to those in the live audience here, guys. Has everyone in their calendars got a regular one-on-one cadence with your staff? Just drop a note in the chat. I'd love to know how many people are doing one-on-ones as leaders here. But that's lovely, Julia. It's an opportunity to start the conversation, isn't it? If you know on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning, someone's in your calendar, you can kind of prepare for that call, right? Or the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if it's, look, don't wait if you don't have one scheduled for, no, if you're doing them 6 monthly or something, like don't leave it till then and put it on the agenda for the one-on-one, but
Yeah.
have a conversation, like ideally immediately when you pick up on these things. So
Yes.
if you get down to the bottom of it quickly,
Yes.
you might be able to turn them around a lot easier than when you let it fester for a couple of months.
And remind me the way of having that conversation is to avoid blame, avoid the confrontation, but specifically address the behavior and be curious as to what might be causing the behavior, right?
Exactly. And asking a lot of open-ended questions, a lot of questions that get your team member to reveal like the why behind it. And
Yeah.
you might lead the conversation with something like, I noticed you used to really enjoy talking to patients, but lately it seems like you're you're not quite as engaged anymore as you used to be. So and that is just my observation, but I was wondering if there's any reasons for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they might say, no, no, nothing's wrong. And it's like, oh, is there anything else that's going on that is weighing you down? And like really trying to get to the next layer, to the next layer of the problem.
And just because the first response that they have is like, no, nothing's wrong, it's not an excuse to just move on to the next topic and start talking about work, right? You have to stay curious and be like, okay, they said no, but can I ask the question a different way to see if they start pouring out?
Yeah, and use examples as much as you can. Like if you have any situations that you've observed, and then really describe like the behavior in that situation that you've seen,
Yes.
and like also share like, look, I'm a bit worried about this. Like share how it makes you feel. Like show that bit of vulnerability and show where you're coming from too. So
Yes.
that will make it easier for them to understand, okay, like you've observed this behavior. You may now conclude that I had this intention, but that was not actually what was behind it for me at all.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that about the almost the I'm putting words in your mouth here, but it's more that authenticity, right? Like when I first started out my leadership career in corporate, I didn't know that when you're leading in corporate, it's just people to people. I always had this really weird model in my head about what leadership was, where it's like a corporate robot or something like having a conversation with people. But then I realized a more authentic leadership style is just genuine concern for your team member. And can you help me, if there's someone on the call that's feeling this same way and you don't want to be too authentic with your team, how do you still level the standard playing field? Like how do you say this is the expectations we have here without sort of sounding like a corporate robot?
Yes, I think if you have good documentation around your like roles and responsibilities and your processes, then you can refer back to that.
Yep.
And that is really, really helpful because it's documented and it's not like as subjective then. And you
Okay.
say, look, our team has agreed and we train our team to use this greeting when patients come in. And we've gone through this in training, but we might have missed it with you. Or is there any questions around that you have? Or do you have any suggestions how to improve it if that doesn't work?
Yeah. And I think also this applies for people who've been A players who've then drifted into that. And that's the most dangerous one, right? Where someone was a shining light, a high performer, and then they've drifted into this negative territory of still being very skilled, but low will in the organization. How many chances is fair before you kind of go, this is not salvageable? I've got to take this person out of this environment.
I think it depends on how bad it is. So if like even the little 1%ers, we don't want to ignore, so we want to address them. But if we can address it then and it changes, then we'll keep monitoring it. If they keep falling back into that behavior, you will have to have the discussion with them around a performance management plan
Yeah.
and document the process because otherwise you can very easily get into the territory of unfair dismissal and making sure that you're taking notes, that you're giving them the chances to improve, that you document everything. And it's for a lot of people, I feel like and it's got a negative like performance improvement plan has a negative connotation, but it doesn't have to be. I think a lot of it is actually helping people
Yeah.
to improve and see their blind spots that they might not even be aware of.
Yeah. I'm going to share something here, quite personal, guys. My leadership team at Searchbox, every single one of them have been on a performance management plan in the past. So proud that I've got a team of A players, but I'm going to throw my team under the bus here. And they didn't get to being A players because they were just great from, newbie to A player. Each of my leadership team at some point in their careers has had to have a performance management plan. And why do you think, Julia, we as leaders avoid confronting performance plans?
I think because as humans, it's quite natural that we are really scared of failure, and that like being on a plan to manage our performance feels like we've failed.
Uh-huh.
One
Uh-huh.
one as an employee, but also as a manager, if we're thinking about the circle and being like, okay, I'm taking responsibility for my actions. If one of my team members is not performing, where's my contribution to that?
I love that. Let's just take a minute to talk about if that's the mindset, how do we put ourselves on the circle? What would be some alternative approaches to thinking about a performance plan if you're a leader or an employee? Say, if you're an employee who's been on the other side of receiving a performance management plan, and I'm very grateful to have my leadership team that I do, but they've been on the other side of a performance management plan and they've come out thriving. So, what would put them on the circle? What mindsets do we need to have to be on the circle?
I think using it as a chance to grow and
Yes.
saying it to them like that. And it's like, look, we all have blind spots. We all have things that we're not aware of that we're doing. And they might be based on past experiences or behaviors. And here we are now working on this together. We'll document your progress and we are aiming for this growth target. And that's where we want you to be.
Wow. I love the positive spin on it. And growth is such an important thing. You wouldn't hire someone if they weren't interested in growth. So I feel like we're really reaching out to people's real desire when they come to work. They want to feel appreciated, they want to feel value, and they want to experience growth in their careers, right? So positioning it that way, I can see how that could help. What about to a practice owner that is looking to build their bench, Julia? How do we start filling the pipeline with those high will, potentially low skill people? But how do we start filling the pipeline? What should practices have in place to attract the right talent in the first place?
Yes. Funny thing, A players usually attract A players. So,
Ah, the secret.
like, because of A players that set the standard very high, they
Yes.
usually, and if they hold each other accountable, they usually don't tolerate anything that is substandard. So if you think of it, Stephen Bartlett wrote about it in the Diary of the CEO, the three bars. And if you think about every team member you hire, it's like if every team member was like that, would it increase the bar? Would it keep the bar the same, or would it lower the bar?
I would say it would increase the bar incrementally as the more people come into the team that are in that A player. It's like a healthy competition almost.
Yes, exactly. And that's what you want to be looking for. So you want to look for the people that give the extra little 1% because they will uplift the people around them with them.
Wow. There's a secret in that. Like talk about leverage, right? How do we create mass leverage? Well, we hire one A player, then we look for the second and the third, and we just do everything to protect that A player group because they're going to naturally refer and attract more A players. I love that. That is so cool.
And start even one step earlier. Am I an A player? Am I showing up as the leader as an A player?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer. How can we answer that with humility? Because there's definitely parts of every leader that they don't want to confront. But if we just tried to emulate the circle mentality, the mindset, I'm guessing that will go a long way to being an A player, right?
Definitely. And also telling people when you're failing and falling short, like sharing your failures is so important.
Wow. Sharing your failures. Guys, I'd love, I know we're getting very close to the end of time here with Julia, and I'd love to get some questions from the audience. So I'd love you to drop a note in the chat for myself and Julia. Do you have any questions that you would like me to ask Julia? Because this has been a session that has meandered through identifying when there's a problem and how to use the skill will matrix to determine where your team are at. We've talked about mindsets and how to get out of the triangle into the circle. We've also talked about how to build a bench and, A players attracting A players. A really good time now, if you have some questions, guys, if there's anyone who's got a specific question you would like me to go through, let's go through that. While we're doing that, while we're waiting for some questions to drop in, Julia, I really want to go back to what you talked about before with the ramp up plan. I can't remember the exact phrase you used. We call it a ramp up plan at Searchbox, but what was it that you mentioned?
Oh, the onboarding?
The onboarding plan. With things like ChatGPT and stuff nowadays, is there really any excuse to not be able to have one of those documents based on if you have a role description of some kind?
I think those AI tools can help, like, can be incredibly helpful, but you also need to, like, they don't know your practice as well as you do.
Right.
So, if you are the practice manager or the practice owner, really sit down and think, like, what's the vision of our practice? Where do we want to go? And then incorporate that in this onboarding, like, step-by-step document, and thinking back to your own days when you first started, like, what
Yes.
support did you need?
Wow. And so what does the document look like? Like if we just, I'm sure in your consulting business, which we're going to talk about now, Bright and Bold Consulting, can you tell me a little bit about the Bright and Bold Consulting business and what you do in that business to help practices?
Yes, so we provide couple of checklists that I've published in the book too, that exactly detail like what an example could look like that you then can customize for your practice. So that is something that we can also sit down with you and help you with and go through it with you and specify like what you as unique practice wanna pay more attention to.
Yeah, and having a role description on its own is just not going to cut it to get your newbie to an A player. You really need to give them the guide rails and the plan to go, this is how you go from here to there. And I think that's just so invaluable that you offer that kind of help and support for practices with templates and resources. Now, another resource I want to talk to you about is the book that I read, um, Beyond Dentistry. How can people get access to the book? I've just dropped the link that you had previously sent me, but how can people get accesses? Can they go on Amazon? They can buy the book?
Every bookstore, every online bookstore, and every physical, or like maybe not every physical bookstore, but around the
Yes.
world, it's
Yes.
available. So yeah, you can just Google my name and Beyond Dentistry, and it will pop up, and you can yeah, choose the supplier of your choice.
That's incredible. I love it. I've just, for those of you that are interested in reading Julia's book, Beyond Dentistry, I've just shared the link in here. We'll send it to those of you that have attended this call as a link in an email. Do yourselves a favor, grab it. Even if it sits on your desk, there'll be a day where you go, I'm having a problem day today. I'm just going to open up to looking at, and there is just so much. There you go.
It's
I'm
always good.
actually looking at it here. Let me do this. Beyond Dentistry. Amazing book. It's such a well laid out book with four very specific pillars in it, Julia. Can you talk us through the four pillars?
Yes, so we talked about the people pillar today, which is super important for the foundation of your business. And then obviously we also have the marketing pillar. That's where Brendan comes in. So
Yes.
if you ever need guidance with that, guys from Searchbox will be able to assist you with that. And then we have a system and processes pillar. So really like diving deeply into not just your PMS, but also your patient follow-ups and all systems that you should have set up around the practice. And planning and analysis. So where we basically do a deep dive in the book into your profit and loss, into your balance sheet, your cash flow statements, and looking at overall business planning and analysis to set your practice up for long-term success.
Yeah, I love that. So planning and analysis, the strategic elements, the people elements, and the marketing elements.
Yes.
You just haven't made that stuff up because I know what you've done with your practices and how you've taken them. You've pretty much taken what you did and put that in a book, if I could summarize that
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Now, what I'm going to do, I know that we're running late for people on the call, but I would love the opportunity to have you back for another Q&A. Julia, I think this has just been so valuable and we'll gather some feedback from those that have attended this call. But would you be open to maybe doing a Q&A around another part of the pillar, another pillar in those four that we talked about in the book?
Yeah, I would love to hear what people are struggling with the most and where they think they could benefit off.
Absolutely. So, what we're going to do, I've just got some ideas here. We'll send out an email to those of you that have been live attendees today with the link to the book, but we'll also include a little bit of a feedback form there just to gather some feedback for myself and Julia on what would be some other topics that might interest you if we're lucky enough to get Julia back for an hour to chat with us. I really appreciate your time today, Julia. The wealth of knowledge that you have, the runs on the board that you have to back up that knowledge is just insane. And I hope you've positively managed to impact, two or three or more of the practice owners and leaders that have been here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Brendan. Lovely to talk to you today.
Awesome. Take care. And to all our clients who are watching this live, I can see Di. Thank you for attending, Cara, Cheryl. For the rest of you that are catching this replay, I hope you implement one or two things that Julia has given you, and you will change the trajectory of where your practice is headed. You know the work that you're avoiding. Have the courage, step into that circle, and actually go and implement. You will not regret it. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you.